If it gets serious, then I might have to stop the stream. And then just record the other 3 off stream, and then upload that on Twitch, and then later on, like, for YouTube. But let's just go on. Like I said, I keep my eye on my phone. I'll put my phone right here so I can see the messages. Okay. So, the Camouflage Crawler is our next one. My god, they're getting... the last couple of ones have been, like, are getting longer and longer, aren't they? Hey, we haven't had a Kita in a while. Okay, hold on, let me see. Let me just do this. Fuck. Angry reviewing has been. The game wasn't even working, and it turns out you're supposed to connect it to 2 different people and cut their legs off. They never tell you this. How the fuck was I supposed to know that? Talk about an unintuitive piece of ass shit. Yeah, that would totally be how you would review that. Any current and future instances of SCP-1927 are to be contained in a specialized terrestrial biological entity containment unit at Site-45, which with said units specially outfitted to allow the application of electric shocks of up to 5 kilovolts and adjustable coloration capable of sufficient variation and complexity so as to inhibit its adaptive camouflaging capabilities. Captive SCP-1927 instances should be regularly fed singular live animals, preferably mammalian, of at least 70 kilograms each, roughly twice a week, unless concurrent testing protocols. Yeah, we're good. Just want to double check that nothing else stopped by accident when my phone fell on the keyboard. We're good. Except growth or reduction in size should be treated with appropriate precautionary measures for potential reproductive event. See Addendum 1927 for more details. Singular live examples of any juvenile SCP-1927 instances generated from reproductive events of -1 and /or tissue samples garnered from such instances are to be collected for study when feasible. The instance of SCP-1927 was first taken into Foundation custody just prior to the capture, where it has disguised itself within a local pedestrian crosswalk. I forgot actually what the camouflage crawler, that's what it was. The existence of additional instances of SCP-1927 in the wild is presumed has been confirmed based on a... How small can I make this? Okay, that's not enough. Oh, here we go. The existence of a continual increasing body of local folklore, historical reports, and modern civilian law enforcement reports of unusual creatures largely matching SCP-1927 description throughout Central and Western Australia. As such, any further such potential reports or records should be followed up by immediate Foundation investigation. For more information, see SCP-1927, A Monster Among Monsters in the Outback, Commonalities Between Certain Modern Cryptids and the Mythos of Aboriginal Cultures by Dr. Paul Wells in the internally published journal Foundation Review of Cryptozoological Studies, Volume 27. Let me just see what she... SCP-1927 is a large, predatory anomalous species of invertebrate that phenotypically exhibits traits other than size, most common primarily with the Turbellaria subphylum of flatworms. Despite this, genetic analysis of the only successfully externally apprehended and contained instance to date. Hence, designated -1 has revealed a unique and highly chimeric genome consisting of genetic material from flatworm, tapeworm, tardigrade, and human genomes, as well as DNA that does not align with any known organisms, anomalous or otherwise. While multiple potential field sightings as well as local oral accounts and tradition all point to at least a small ongoing population of numerous such entities going back at least roughly 2 centuries, only one instance has so far been successfully apprehended by the Foundation. Most specific biological and genomic information has been gleaned from this individual, -1, an offspring it has produced while in the Foundation captivity. SCP-1927 instances are segmented and highly flattened with Sorry about that. SCP-1927 instances are segmented and highly flattened with a default thickness of no more than 0.3 meters at most beyond the head and a length of up to 80 meters. The skin can produce a unique acidic secretion that can slowly dissolve almost any organic substance as well as most oxidizable metals, along with a sticky adhesive coating to retain moisture and allow it to stick to a wide variety of surfaces and materials. Other than extended periods of extremely low oxygen levels or strong electric shock, SCP-1927's body is highly resilient to a variety of generally hostile environmental conditions such as rapid temperature fluctuations, sharp objects, blunt force, highly caustic acidic solutions, and or high localized or full body pressures. I see. So when it says disguise itself as a logo, so the white stripes here are is the SCP. Gotcha. Though SCP-1927 instances do not appear to host visual or auditory sensory organs, they demonstrate high sensitivity to vibration, which appears to serve as the main method used to detect and pursue nearby prey. Basic olfactory abilities are suspected as well, though not directly confirmed. SCP-1927 has also demonstrated extremely versatile reactive camouflage, recoloring its outer surface in extremely high detail in the blend. And with its surroundings via the use of chromatophores, though how the organism is able to accurately reproduce colors and patterns without any detectable visual organs is not well understood. SCP-1927 head is distinguished only by the presence of its mouth. With circular rows of sharp teeth surrounded by an outer ring of 6 petty pulp-like fangs, and most of its internal biology appears to be related primarily or exclusively to digestion. SCP-1927 is fully carnivorous. Its usual hunting process involves spreading itself across a suitable flat surface, using acidic secretion to dissolve a shallow cavity to nestle itself within if necessary, and ambushing unsuspecting prey that wanders too close. Larger prey may first be subjected to external constriction while being subjected to SCP-1927's acidic secretion to soften the living prey tissue for easier consumption. In a highly similar fashion to that of boa constrictors, despite the comparatively highly reduced core muscle mass. For non-human organisms, the actual consumption process usually occurs upon a resultant cessation of physical struggle by the prey animal. Broadly speaking, as long as it remains fed and unthreatened, SCP-1927 generally displays relatively docile behavior. Of course, most animals do that. It will also enter an even lower activity state in preparation for reproductive division, Regardless of the exact method involved, at least 3 distinct reproductive processes have been observed from -1, while in Foundation captivity, though further as yet unconfirmed unique processes have been alluded to form local accounts and folklore. Hit my microphone again. It should be noted that such accounts vary and often involve seemingly hyperbolic elements such as ritual, human sacrifices, airborne locomotion, spiritual possession, and time dilation, for which there remain no otherwise supporting evidence. Dr. Paul Wallace. See the attached addendum for more details. So this addendum is just read, but it's already open. But this one are the big boys. Okay. Honestly, I'm surprised it's only got 22 upvotes. I feel like I like the sound of this a lot. I like that it's like this constricting worm-like being that can, especially because I like the image of it disguising itself as a crosswalk. But let's just keep reading. In the months following -1's initial recovery and containment, the organism was subjected to variations in diet and environmental conditions with frequently novel and unexpected results, especially in relation to its reproductive abilities. A sample of particularly notable such results and the relevant preceding circumstances is compiled below. Prior context. First of all, Event 1927-RE1. Prior context. -1 was fed almost double its preliminary established quantity of food consistently over a period of 5 weeks in order to test for any resulting biological or behavioral changes. Results. -1 was observed to suddenly enter a highly agitated state one day, attempting to climb the wall of its chamber several times in succession before ceasing and entering a restive state. However, just 3 hours later, its body was observed split horizontally along its midsection, resulting in 2 separate entities. The newer organism comprised of the lower half was observed to sport its own nascent mouth structure and almost immediately began to display independent behavioral patterns and characteristics. That reminds me of the an enemy from Hollow Knight. That one worm-like thing that if you kill it, it splits into 2 pieces. And then both pieces just become its own entity. Additional notes: after applying a precautionary electrical current to both organisms to temporarily inhibit movement, the newer instance of SCP-1927 was extracted from the containment chamber. An example that comprised of the bottom segments of the initial entry. Update: RE1. The newly created instance was reintroduced to its containment chamber after an initial examination. Almost immediately, however, both SCP-1927 instances began engaging in directly hostile behavior towards one another. Electrical currents were applied to stun instances before one or both suffered significant injury. However, given the lack of any additional available containment chamber with sufficient properties and precautions already in place, the decision was made to perform vivisections in the second instance, from which much of the Foundation's current knowledge of the organism's internal biology has been gleaned. Yeah, I mean, it will try to kill itself. Well, not itself, but it will fight, no matter what you do. So might as well use one to gain some understanding of how they work biologically wise. Event RE2. Prior context: varying animal species were provided to SCP-1927 over a period of just over 2 weeks, often simultaneously, in order to gauge preference in prey, if any. Results: larger prey seems to be preferred regardless of species, with the exception of an even stronger demonstrated preference for human victims when given a choice between large animals like cattle, kangaroos, or horses, and D-class personnel. A potential connection to the observed presence of human DNA in SCP-1927's generic genome has been hypothesized to be connected to this preference, though any exact reason for such potential connection if so, remains unclear. Additional notes: notably, the subject's screaming continued for almost 3 minutes after initial consumption by -1. Subsequent X-rays were arranged and showed that the muffled shouts only ceased once her head was separated from the rest of the body mid-ingestion. Despite this, the subject's mouth and head could be seen to continue moving for around another 137 minutes, seemingly of its own accord, before digestion rendered any firm interpretation or conclusion as to the behavior of the head untenable. Remains unclear as to how and for how long the subject's brain and nervous system functions were somehow maintained. Update RE 2.A. Persistent cognitive function and awareness confirmed in subsequent tests involving 3 other D-class personnel through use of more specialized technology. However, access to the final analysis data by staff outside the SCP-1927 team and all planned future testing involving human subjects have both been halted following an ethics committee injunction. And update RE 2.B. Singular posterior segments consistently observed to begin to separate following 5 to 6 days after each human subject was consumed, physically somewhat similar in form to the new instance generated during reproductive event RE1, other than a comparatively smaller size and lack of multiple segments. However, due to a combination of insufficient notice and response time by staff as well as the increased size discrepancy in each case, these new instances were attacked and cannibalized by the original parent organism before they could be separated for further study, or assigned their own sub-designation. Event RE3. So it looks like at the end, okay, so it says here where it has disguised itself with local pedestrians and crosswalks. So this is not every single line here is a SCP. It disguised itself as one of these things. Gotcha. Because I was about to say, it sounds like they're not a pack anomaly. Like, don't really want to share or work together. Seems to be like the moment there's another one, they get aggressive. Even if the other one used to be part of the original body, they would be like, no, this is my territory. You can't be here. Okay, event RE3. Pilot context -1's diet reduced to 60% of its then current standard quantity of food consistently over a period of just under 4 weeks, or underfeeding it, huh? Results -1 became increasingly restless and agitated over the first 3 weeks before appearing to drastically weaken throughout the 4th. Eventually, it began to rapidly deteriorate in size and soon began shedding flakes of skin ranging in size from approximately 2.5 to 3 millimeters in diameter. Additional samples of shed material were collected from the chamber for further study, and food rations ramped back up to standard amounts. We're sorry that we treated you like this. Come on, here, have some food. Update RE3. Localized biohazard contamination events. See document IL 1927-RE3 for further details, which is right here, and it's a big document, but mostly it seems to be a interview, so that's fine. Okay, background. Incident RE3. Background: approximately 22 minutes after initial sample retrieval of shed external material following event RE3, staff researcher Paul Wallace triggered a potential biohazard alarm upon his return to the laboratory based on the potential of remaining traces of toxic or acidic residue due to the visible development of rapidly spreading rashes and lesions on the other members of the SCP-1927 research team shortly after the removal of sterilized biohazard protection suits. Shortly following the initiation of the resulting quarantine procedures, affected research staff, 3 in total, additionally began to report the onset of other symptoms such as extreme abdominal cramping, significant nausea and dizziness, large hives along the spreading rashes, and a burning sensation on the large areas of their skin. Subsequent self-administered medical checks identified rapidly growing tumor-like cysts within developing dermatological growths, as well as similar bodies dispersed throughout many vital internal organs. There's a lot of footnotes on this one, I gotta say. Believed to have originated through spread via the bloodstream, though this remains speculation as any further or confirmational testing was deemed extremely inadvisable. Starting just over another 45 minutes post-quarantine, small new instances of SCP-1927 began erupting from the hives of one of the attendant researchers, quickly followed by even larger juvenile instances erupting from the torso. Just like the face, just like the chest bursters. I was about to say the face hoggers. I'm like, no, they plant the thing in. They don't burst out of the body. God. A similar process was observed in each of the affected research staff shortly thereafter. These developments proved fatal in all 3 cases, though most new SCP-1927 instances resulting from the event were successful, contained, and incinerated were destroyed. Further details are available in final file updates to those with sufficient clearance. Dr. Paul Wallace, the reporting researcher and only survivor of the incident, was taken for a debriefing interview, a truncated log of which is included below. Yeah, it is truncated, that's for sure. Interviewer, Internal Compliance and Investigations Agent Ellen Lambert, interviewed Dr. Paul Wallace, SCP-1927 researcher. Date April 10th, 2022. Begin log. Okay, so first off, my condolences once again for the loss of your team. And know that your continued fortitude following the tragic incident is much appreciated. Thank you. I'm doing my best. That's all we can ask. Well, metaphorically speaking, of course. I don't need to ask some pretty literal and direct questions about what happened. So let's start at the beginning. Your initial role on the project, I see that you've only been assigned to the project about 4 weeks ago, yes? Oh, that's right. Wait, I lost it. Fuck, I had it. Oh, yeah. No. Oh, you beauty. That's right. I was brought in order to investigate in current and historical tensions, attestations, records, and cultural aspects of anything. I had the Australian accent just a moment ago. Now I lost it. You little ripper. Aspects of anything potentially related to SCP-1927. It just goes more and more like into more North English. My late teammates were all parasology and ecology, but given the discovery of a local historical attestation, I was eventually brought in as well. Yes, that's all well recorded. That being said, while you would usually be considered the least qualified witness on a team like yours to consult on the organism's behavioral changes, you are what we have. All that's to say, do you have any thoughts or theories as to what exactly may have precipitated this new ability and behavior? What changed? Well, it wasn't a direct behavior, so to speak, as much as it was a physical reaction, if I had to guess. At the time I'd been experimenting with diet and portion sizes for a while by then, which had already led to some interesting results, to say the least. At that point, we would try. I have to think of like all the Australian people and just be like, harness their voice, but also at the same time, I never actually tried to have an Australian accent, so I'm absolutely suffering right now. At that point, we were trying to identify a safe lower bound in terms of his diet. How honestly, perhaps we were exactly avoiding the possibility of novel reactions or behaviors that may occur in response either, regular as that now seems. Yes, I've read the logs. A risky methodological strategy, one might argue, but alas, speaking of risky, research protocols and your use of the first person plural 3, the plural there, just how involved have you been in recent biological testing? Persons of your background are rarely, how do I say this, directly involved in general biological laboratory research tasks? Sorry, but how is this relevant? Look, the fact that the only reason you weren't present during the suspected moment of the laboratory's biohazard contamination was that you dropped fragile lab equipment and were subsequently sent to retrieve replacement. It's notable to say the least. Whether it's actually relevant or not is part of what exactly I'm here to ascertain. Oh, you pompous fuck! You can't even begin to understand the Dr. Wallace paused for several moments before resuming in a more measured tone and volume than before. I apologize for my outburst. I'm just a little sensitive with everything going on, but you're right. The only reason I wasn't present for the immediate aftermath of the contamination was that I went to get extra petri dishes to examine the sheds material the other researchers went to gather. And I only had to do that because my clumsy ass broke the first batch. Don't worry, emotional volatility in times like this is to be expected, but so is an ability to manage it. I appreciate you showing such an ability in times like this. Thanks, I guess. Sure thing. No, now to be clear, that was meant as a factual observation, not an accusation or subtle implication of any sort. But it is a notable one given your background and particular role on the project. Specialized anthropologists aren't usually utilized to do manual laboratory assistance here, such as retrieving equipment. Yes, well, to be honest, I sort of volunteered. Most of the time since my assignment here, I've been kept plenty busy in my role conducting historical and background research and anything and everything that might signal potential connection to SCP-1927 in every source available. I was flying out to rural outback towns and farms, dutifully collecting and transcribing accounts from folks usually quite happy to talk about their old family stories and local legends. I learned a lot, to say the least. That said, my research has reached a snag lately. I generally haven't been able to find much in the way of new information since returning to this site and published my recent paper on SCP-1927. For some reason, all my original contacts are almost universally hesitant to discuss things any further, and the planned second jaunt keeps getting continually postponed by administration. It's just been a series of recent disappointments and grasping at the most tangential straws in the meantime. That despite all that we've recently by the way, Vinvon, I'm so sorry. That despite all that we've recently found accounts of creatures reminiscent of SCP-1927 have been attested in the folklore of disparate Australasian cultures, and we also that the unique genetic relationship with. Please focus on the matter at hand, Dr. Wallace. I already read your paper in preparation for this interview. Well, look, the point was that I haven't had any good news lately. Basically stuck waiting on either more resources to be made available for existing local contacts to get back to me with more information. Ergo, lately I've been twiddling my thumbs and aching for some way to be useful. Regardless, what I'm hearing overall is that your team saw a new development with SCP-1927 and noted the shedding of external material. They recently elected to gather samples for study. You proceed to get the appropriate equipment for yourself in order to serve some utility in the process, but then you stumbled and dropped them, necessitating a new supply. When you finally return to the lab, you notice the initial stages of what will turn out to be a fatal infection on the skin of several of your colleagues. More or less, I suppose. Actually, knowing that we're working on a dangerous anomalous organism, I elected to play it safe and pull the potential biohazard alarm instead of re-entering. My fellow researchers' initial, if short-lived, chagrin. Did they not suspect the potentially hazardous nature of the newly retrieved anomalous biomaterial? Of course they did, even still attached. SCP-1927's skin is frequently covered in a caustic acid and potent neurotoxins. Obviously, the team put on an appropriate protective suit to go in and retrieve the samples in the first place, but in this case, it just didn't end up providing sufficient protection. Also, before you ask, no, I do not have any real explanation for the failure. The suits have been tested against each known secreted substance and bodily fluid overproduced by SCP-1927 before then, with nothing close to failure. But this time, I don't know, they just didn't protect them. Dr. Wallace puts his head in his hand and begins to quiet his help. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know why or how this happened. I just know I do anything to make it not. Bleh. I just know I do anything to make it so that it didn't. The most of any of us can do is to make sure it isn't likely to happen again. Now, while I can't say your actions during the episode itself represent a traditional on-the-job competence, at least that they may have been fortuitous in the sense that we have a key survivor still with us with intimate knowledge and experience. That is nothing. Thank you. Weird as it sounds, that actually kind of makes me feel better. Helps the survivor's guilt, so to speak. Reminds me that at least some good came from my dumb mistake. While providing that it's not what I'm here for, that's perfectly fine as a bonus if your spirit is enough to have aided you in providing the most cogent and detailed account possible. Now and any future consultations on the matter. Agent Lambert begins to gather her things in preparation to terminate the interview and exit before pausing. One last thing before we end the session. As you have elected to forego voluntary amnestation, I don't feel that I deserve to forget. You will continue to receive mandatory psychiatric care and bi-weekly psychological counseling sessions with Dr. Roberts for at least the next 3 months. Of course, no complaints there. And log. Closing statement. After supervisory consideration following the disciplinary board post-incident review, the conclusion was reached that Dr. Wallace's physical clumsiness failed to constitute actionable malintent or incompetence. Further contextual information is available to members of the board and staff with level 4 clearance only. Very much like the 096 YouTube video, right? Well, where they interview the doctor about the scramble goggles and everything, and you find out at the end, like, oh yeah, he instigated it all so that he has like permission to kill SB096. The scramble goggles were not meant to work to begin with, and all that stuff was all like bait to see if he like what his intentions were. So yeah, it feels like very much like that. Like it's like, oh yeah, you just so happened to drop some stuff and you had to leave, but then when you left, SCP killed everybody. That's the plot of the original file that just carried over to the short film. Oh, I did not know that. Okay, because when I read 096, that was not in there anymore. Okay, that's cool. I did not know that. Level 4 1927 security clearance required for access to further update. Unless I just don't recall that at all, but okay, input L4 and 1927 credentials. Update L40-13.4.22. Shortly after the above interview, a final analysis from reviewed lab footage identified that the most likely instigating factor behind the initial contamination was small piercings in the sterile biocontainment suits caused by shards of shattered fallen lab materials, the same occurrence which instigated Dr. Wall's temporary departure from the lab to retrieve replacements in the first place. Furthermore, video analysis has shown that due to the angle and forward momentum of the instruments at the point of contact, only the suits of his 3 teammates in front of him at the time were likely to be compromised by this event. After supervisory consideration following the disciplinary review board's decision foregoing any formal punishment or reprimand of Dr. Wallace, resident psychiatric specialist Dr. A.J. Roberts' strong suggestion was that Dr. Wallace not to be alert of his apparent inadvertent role in causing the initial quarantine breach. This suggestion was approved, especially considering his already requested and granted project reassignment following a brief period of training, assisting in training a new and expanded research and containment team. So his actions kind of caused the damage. Gotcha. Note, any future attempt to access this file from an internal login or device associated with Dr. Wallace, even in the unlikely event of future progression to some position with level 4 standard security clearance, will be met with false database error messages. Dr. Roberts has repeatedly expressed her professional opinion that any such attempts at re-access on the part of Dr. Wallace in the first place remain considerably unlikely, though this does not invalidate the need for such precautions. Agent E. Lambert. Up to the L40-15.4.22. Of additional note, genetic analysis of samples taken from... Sorry about hitting the microphone all the time. Let me just move the keyboard forward so it doesn't do that. Oh, there we go. Of additional note, genetic analysis of samples taken from the new SCP-1927 instances prior to the incineration found similar proportions of various DNA from other species as seen in the generic genome of the original instances, with all non-genetic material being virtually identical as would be expected from asexual reproduction. However, human portions of the genome have been replaced with genetic material identical to that of the late researchers of SCP-1927's original staff, depending on which body the given juvenile instances had incubated in. The exact mechanism and implication of this fact remains poorly understood. A subsequent administrative appeal to the Ethics Committee previous injunction against further declassed human testing in light of the new development was submitted, result denied. Update L40-11.5.22. Anonymous tip led to the reinvestigation and subsequent revelation of Dr. Paul Wallace obfuscating of relevant information in the initial review. Such information includes the first newly formed SCP-1927 instances from prior to the area resecurement, showing the apparent recognition of him during incident RE3, and seemingly intentional sparing of it as a food or reproductive factor, as well as the discovery of attempts by Dr. Wallace to confiscate and destroy associated footage of such an event, as well as footage showing the apparent escape of new instances into the site's ventilation system. Disciplinary hearing reopened into Dr. Wallace. He keeps messing things up. Nose is so itchy right now. Updated L40 -2-6 -2.6.22. Capture of second and third wild instance of SCP-1927 since designated -2 and -3 after rapidly increasing local sightings and civilian encounters, confirming recent observation in which instances appear to demonstrate a higher order tactics and strategic behavior. A second administrative appeal to the Ethics Committee previous injunction against further human testing in light of the new development was submitted and fast-tracked with all 5 council approval. Results appeal overturned. D-class testing to resume beginning June 24th, 2022. The poor D-class. Back to being giant worm food. I honestly don't know why it's only got 22 upvotes. I think this deserves a lot more than that. Maybe it is because it's like very similar, like story-wise very similar to 096 with like the whole like, oh, did you? It's a bit longer than it needs to be. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's a bit longer than it needs to be. I was about to say, like, maybe the whole like section where like, oh, did you cause this thing? It's very similar to 096. So people are like, yeah, we kind of had this already, and it was done with a more interesting SCP. So yeah, the fact that it's a bit longer, I can see that that's the reason. But I think the concept itself, yeah, it deserves a lot more upvotes than that, I would say. I don't think it's like a multi-hundred upvotes, but I think it definitely deserves more than what it had.